What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about OnyxCoin today, XCN USD. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, my friends. It is the 20th day of September, and here we are at about 10 hours, 24 minutes left in the day. 1.234 cents. We got a little 1, 2, 3, 4 action there. Not really up, not really down over the past few days now, right? Just closing at the same area. I don't expect this weekend to promote any kind of significant price action. You know, maybe we come down a little bit, maybe we come up a little bit, but whatever. I am expecting Bitcoin to crawl up by the end of the day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that OnyxCoin is going to move up by the end of the day. You know, we do have this little update with OnyxCoin here where is it here? Yeah. The poll to increase XCN native staking rate to 40% is now live, which is, great. We did have pretty high staking for a long time, and I'm pretty sure the staking, I don't remember what it was. It was 30 to 40% while we were making this last move here. This 20x move in 2 weeks. It's not that, and I'm saying this because I made a post on X about this, saying that I don't think we should pass this. But who am I to say this, right? I'm not the ambassador to OnyxCoin himself, right? I know I talk about it all the time, but I don't know everything, guys. I'm more of a chart monkey kind of guy. I like to watch the charts and do chart analysis, right? Who am I to say that a 40% increase in the staking rate is not beneficial to the ecosystem? Maybe it attracts more people, but my thoughts here are, you know, the thing that attracts most investors. I'm assuming this would be a way to attract investors, right? If it's a 40% staking pool annually, not monthly, but annually, then you'd have people who are more likely to stake for the long term. But then you also have people who are likely to take profits in the short term. Maybe they restake, maybe they don't. I would imagine most people would restake, but there's going to be people who take profits as well. 40% is definitely a lot, and especially with how Onyx does their staking, you can just stake and then unstake immediately. There's no wait time. That doesn't necessarily promote loyalty. It might attract a crowd in that certain stance, but there are cryptos that don't stake at all that attract investors that crowds come to. And you know what speaks much louder than staking is price action. So all I'm trying to get to here is, if OnyxCoin is going to go to the promised land of 26 cents to 32 cents by the end of October or by the end of this year, if that's where it's going to go, why give more rewards away? Why add to that selling pressure, right? In my opinion, we should reward the people who've been here, who've been holding, who've been buying more, not the people who might just be coming for the staking protocol and then getting a kick off of that. I mean, maybe it's a way to bring double attraction, right? There's a certain sense to that. If people are attracted by the staking percentage, or the yield returns, then and then the price action moves up. You've got two avenues of attraction, and I get that. But I think price action speaks for itself. Price action will attract investors in itself. Um, but again, we had pretty high staking back here, pretty high yield rates back here. I keep saying high staking. We had high yield rates back here, and we still moved up plenty well all on our own there. I'm not saying that this would be a detriment. Somebody was asking, would this be bad? Would this change your price predictions if OnyxCoin did pass this? No, it wouldn't change my price predictions. It might make me want to sell everything else personally and just put it all in OnyxCoin so I can get a 40% return, in all honesty. But that shifts. And then somebody else is saying, we don't want more inflation for OnyxCoin. I don't think that's how this works. I'm pretty sure that this would not, the DAO would just reallocate funds, because there's a certain, I from what I know, I'm pretty sure there's a pool that's allocated already for staking, and there are coins that come out every single month that are inflating, but the rate of inflation is not going to change, right? What's cool about Onyx is that even if we have a 40% rate of stake, there's not going to be it's not going to be a higher rate of inflation, right? The only thing is we'll have higher rates, I think, of selling pressure, in my opinion, right? From people who are holding, because then you have people who are holding OnyxCoin. They might be holding a large amount, and they're cool with just making profits on OnyxCoin as it grows up, and then they take profits on the staking rewards just because they can, because why not? I don't know. I don't know, just a thought there. I wouldn't want this to pass personally, but if it does pass, no, I don't change any of my expectations for OnyxCoin. I think that it's going to be fine. just wanted to get that out there and talk about that, because I'm sure a lot of people are aware of this now. 14,000 people saw this. I get less than 14,000 views on these videos, so I'm assuming some of you at least have to be aware of this right now, right? Anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about the price here, okay? Looking at this here at about 1.23 cents right now. I still love the serendipity there. It's great. Overall, we are balls deep in this consolidation phase. We've been consolidating for quite some time, you guys. Again, if we measure this here from the high that took place back in March of 2024 to the phase where we started to grow, that was about 34 weeks. We have hit the 34-week mark as of today, or as of this week, since our high back in January, back at the end of January there. So 34 weeks here, 34 weeks there. One would think that we are pretty damn close to a point where we would start to move higher, okay? I mean, here, if we found a high, we started to move higher after 17 weeks. Here, it wasn't that long. I mean, these are some of the longer phases of consolidation as far as OnyxCoin is concerned. From a high here, going down to these lows, I mean, to that low there is about 65 weeks. But we're not in a downtrend, right? So I don't think it'll last as long as this. 34 weeks sounds about right. Next week, we should be moving up higher. And maybe, actually, whenever we look back at this, we will look at this as, 33 weeks that we started to move up. It might have been last week that we started to move up, depending on how this week closes here. Whenever we moved up here, there were some red weeks still, but we were still moving up overall. I very much do anticipate that OnyxCoin is on a path higher to 26 to 32 cents. We derived that target from our 1,886,200 area right here, right? That's the area that we intend. It lines up with a lot of other key areas as well. Hold on. It lines up with a lot of different key areas. We can go over that actually now. Let's do that. Let's talk about XCN to BTC here. XCN BTC. I should have had this one pulled up already, I think, because the computer's moving a little bit slow today. The mornings are not friendly, man. They're not friendly. It used to be the nights, but something shifted. I don't know. The satellite's got a new rotation. I don't know. If we're looking at this here on the Bitcoin chart, so this is OnyxCoin compared to Bitcoin, right? This is OnyxCoin priced in dollars. It's worth 1.23 cents. Priced in Bitcoin, it's worth 0.06, so there's 6 zeros. That's what that means. 10677 Bitcoins, right? It's very, very low on the Bitcoin denomination there. From a high to a low here, you went all the way up just above your 2272, and now you're finding support at your 1272. One would think that we would at least grow to the next level, which would then be up here at the 2618 to the 28863,113 area, which we could. Maybe that's where we stop. I don't think, personally, after all this consolidation, that we're going to get a move like this. I would think that we get something that's a little bit bigger, but we could. It's possible. Putting a line here, it doesn't really make sense that we'd stop here. There's not really any significance in the price action, so it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, that we stop there. Putting a line anywhere in between, same thing. There's not really any significant price action. It would make sense that we go up just a little bit higher, but by way of the fibs, it doesn't make as much sense, right? Finding support at this, or finding resistance at this prior support, there's not really much in the way of significance there. So it's either, we go up here, we go down here, whatever. The 2618, however, does line up at a rather significant area, right? This prior high. And while it does make sense, again, the only thing that doesn't make sense to me is like that's the move. We get a little move like that. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe that's what we get. So let's start with this move. Let's start with the move here. Let's do the measurements there, and then we'll go with something that, in my opinion, makes a little bit more sense, which is the base area here. And again, the base area there makes sense because, taking the fibs away, where we found resistance before, right here, was right at this base area as well. So out of this whole downtrend, the only significant area that you stopped at all beyond the low itself was right here. That significant area, that happens to be where you actually found resistance, was right at the base. So the only significant area between here and the top, as far as the base goes, would be right up here. So we're going to measure, and we're going to see what the numbers come up with. Okay, so let's take the very conservative approach. Okay, 6076. Let's do that. Let's see. We'll do, so Google calculator. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6 zeros, 7, 6 what? 76036. Okay, so 76036. We do that, and we multiply that by the perceived price of Bitcoin. Now, the perceived price, what I mean is when OnyxCoin versus Bitcoin reaches this, what will Bitcoin's price be? You would assume that if OnyxCoin is moving up versus Bitcoin, that means the dollar's moving up, the OnyxCoin dollar's moving up, and if that's happening, Bitcoin's probably not moving down, it's probably not moving sideways, it's probably moving up as well. So I don't know what the perceived price of Bitcoin is going to be by the time XCN BTC reaches there. So let's just put in the actual price right now, 116K. Let's do that. This will tell us that at the most pessimistic bearish minimum that we could have, or I should say bullish minimum that we would have, as far as what the growth expectation would be, OnyxCoin would not at least get to this level, but it would undoubtedly surpass this level, okay? And that is 8.8 cents. Okay, so we could have told you that, right? 8.8 cents, we're certainly going to pass that from a high to a low. 8.8 cents puts us above the 1272. If we're going to pass that, and likely not just a little bit, but probably significantly, I would say that at the most conservative minimum, we would see 15.7 cents, right? And maybe we see that by the end of October, we consolidate, and then we go into the end of the year, we see this price, right? Inevitably climbing to prices that are well above $1 and beyond, of course, okay? Let's look at Bitcoin and try to come up with an area that makes sense. So to do this, I'm going to analyze the prior bull market high to the bear market low that we just came out of. High to low here. I say just came out of. It was November 2022, almost 3 years ago now. Crazy stuff, guys. It's been 3 years. This bull market has taken a long time, but it's been very voluptuous so far. Very boring, but still nice. I would anticipate that Bitcoin, being here at the 1414 by the end of October, if not at least by the end of the year, but I would think by the end of October, right over here, we're probably going to be at that 173 to 180K level. So let's say Bitcoin, for all intents and purposes, back in January, topped off January 20th. OnyxCoin topped off on the week of the 20th as well. So they topped off at the same time, more or less, which is nice to see. Let's say that Bitcoin tops off before OnyxCoin, or maybe OnyxCoin tops off before Bitcoin. Maybe they don't top off at the exact same time. So if Bitcoin's perceived price is 173K to 180K, let's bring the price down a little bit because OnyxCoin might top off before it gets there. Bitcoin might top off after OnyxCoin, or it might top off before OnyxCoin finds its high, right? So let me try to rephrase this. OnyxCoin might top off while Bitcoin is on its way higher, or perhaps OnyxCoin's still making its move even after Bitcoin finds its resistance. So either way, we're probably going to be at these lower areas. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I think it made sense the most at first, and then I tried to explain it more, and that just made it make less sense. But understand, we're not going to put 170 to 180K in. We're going to multiply the same price, right? This one here, but instead of by 116,000, instead of by 180,000, we're going to do 160,000. Let's do that. So 160,000, and again, I don't believe that XCN BTC is going to stop here, but it's the only other logical area that makes sense, right? It's the only other logical area that makes sense, and even, truth be told, I think even a little bit higher. That might not seem like a significant difference, but that is a significant difference. We can even run those numbers too. Okay, let's do that. But 160K, that's 12 cents. If we do 160K times 6 zeros, right? 160,000 times 6 zeros. 8189, we do that, that's 13 cents. So 12 to 13 cents. Okay, that could happen, but again, as far as the USD is concerned, 12 to 13 cents, and is that right? 13.1, yeah, it was 12 point what? 12.1, 13.1. As far as that goes, it's kind of far away, I'd say, from this 1414. Maybe not 12.1 cents so much, but 13.1, I don't know. It's kind of far away from the 1414. You don't typically what you'll do is you'll stop at the 1272, or you'll stop just above the 1414 like this, or you'll go to the golden ratio. And the fact that you're a little bit higher than just above the 1414 makes me think that we would at least go to the golden ratio. So something's not lining up here, right? We'd be at new all-time highs on the Coinbase pair, and we're going to stop just above it. That doesn't make sense to me either. Not that it can't happen. Not that we can't find turbulence there momentarily. Maybe we do. Maybe we find turbulence there because this is an area to find turbulence at, but inevitably still continue to grow. My thoughts would be that if this area doesn't make sense on the U.S. dollar price, which I don't think it does personally, I would think that the next area would have to make sense then, which is 15.7 cents. So the bare minimum target would be 15.745 cents. Now, I don't believe that we stop there. I really don't believe that we stop there. I'm just addressing what we're seeing on the charts to be real, okay? That would be a 12.7x. Hope you guys are okay with that, right? 12.7x at a bare minimum. But we don't generally consider this target because, again, nothing really, we can't really make sense out of it. As far as XCN BTC, XCN USD, and Bitcoin USD goes, we don't really make sense out of that. So moving this line up a little bit to the only other area that makes sense, which would be here, all the way up at 501872. We do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1872, 501872. We multiply that by not 116K, but 160K. Again, we're being a little bit generous with this, I think. Not generous with the fact that Bitcoin's going to be at 160K, just generous with the fact that we're not doing 180K. We could if we wanted to, but I don't think that's appropriate. Or maybe it is, but let's be conservative. That gives us a price of about 30 cents. 30 cents right there, which 30 cents is smack dab in the middle of this range here. Right, 30 cents would be if OnyxCoin to BTC went all the way up here. And if we're looking at this here, you guys, treating this like a bull flag, okay, from a low to a high, I don't think I'd take the overall low. I think I'd just take that low. We put it at the low of this pattern. That takes us essentially right to that area, right, as a measurement. It takes us right to that area. If this is a bull flag, if it's not, we're anticipating that there will be a similar amount of growth as there was last time, okay? And if we look at the fibs, we take the all-time high to the low, all-time high to low here. We stopped right here at the 0.5, and if you've been following the channel, I'm not just saying this, I've said this plenty of times before. It's been a while since we've seen things like this take shape, not for OnyxCoin, but for various cryptos, right? But if it does happen, if we do move up to the 0.5 and we're consolidating there, typically you would expect to blast through the golden ratio. You wouldn't expect to stop here. Again, this area, this first line that we measured, is also right in the golden ratio. So that's a perfectly fine area to find resistance. Typically on the first interaction of the golden ratio, which we've yet to have a first interaction. We haven't done it yet. Typically you do find resistance there. But in those moments where it's not so typical, in those moments where you do just blast through it and hit the 786, 886 area as a whole, you do see movements like this where you're well above the 0.5. You're consolidating there. This does not mean that we have to move above the golden ratio. It just adds to the statistical probability that we do, okay? And what do I know? I've been doing this for 10 years, and the Fibonacci retracement tool is my bread and butter, but, you know, if anybody out there thinks I'm just making this up, we can go over plenty of examples where that's not the case at all, actually. I wonder even if we can find one here just real quick on XCN. Let's see. This isn't the all-time history, so I don't know if I'd feel right doing that. Maybe on Bitcoin. Maybe we can find one on Bitcoin here. Okay, yeah. So look at this, right? It's almost perfect, but it's not quite perfect, right? High to low. Where did we stop? We didn't even get to the 0.5, right? We didn't even get to the 0.5, but we got pretty close to it. And typically, if you get to the 0.5 or above, that's whenever you expect to rip through the golden ratio on your first attempt. Okay, you got pretty close to it here, and look, you went all the way up to your 786. You kind of stopped at your golden ratio area, but you didn't reject it, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for, but that's not even a prime example, really. But that's something. Let's see. I don't want to get stuck on this for too long. Let's just see here. High to low. No, that's not, because you just went all the way up to your golden ratio there. You didn't stop. Let's see. Can we find an example? I don't think we can. That's okay. I don't want to spend too much time finding an example. Just because I can't find an example on the weekly time doesn't mean that it's not there. But all I'm trying to say, guys, is again, that finding resistance here at the 0.5, or especially getting above it, it adds to the statistical probability that we don't stop here in an area that we've already deduced makes somewhat sense, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? It would actually make more sense to go up here. And what else makes sense about this area here? What else makes sense about it beyond the fact that it's just an area that we've found support at before. It was the base of this range. Just like we found resistance here at the base of this range, we could find resistance at the base of this range. What else makes sense? Well, if we measured this move and we put it at the low, it takes us right up to that area. Okay, it takes us right up there. Also, it's where the 786 is. It's pinpoint accurate right there where the 786 is. Do we have to stop there? No, we could go higher. Absolutely, we could, but I want to be a little bit on the conservative side still. If I wanted to be a moon boy bull guy, I would just post. I'd post the 886 targets because we've got a nice area of support here. We could find that as resistance. You know, I could just do that and then multiply it by 180K. We'd get dramatically higher numbers, right? We'd get like 40 cent and beyond. But I think 29 cents thereabouts. Maybe I'm off. Maybe instead of Bitcoin being at 160K, it's at 150K. It hasn't hit its high yet, or it's come down so much from its high while OnyxCoin is still moving up. Yes, Bitcoin can move down and OnyxCoin can still move up. Altcoins can move up. We've seen that before, not just this cycle, but prior cycles as well. For various altcoins, whenever Bitcoin consolidates, that's normally when altcoins run in the middle of alt season. Like that's typical behavior. So maybe this number's wrong. You know, instead of multiplying by 160, it'd be a different number. But something, you know, that's 30 cent. I think that's a good kind of average to give and take a little bit. If we're at 30 cents, we're right in the heart of this range here. Maybe 32 cents, maybe 26 cents. But I really, truly do believe that this is the area to intend. At the most pessimistic minimum that we could realistically come up with, it was like 12 cents. Which from here, 12 cents is still over a 10x, you guys, right? That's, or I guess technically it's not. It's just below a 10x. So I hope you're okay with that. But 12 cents doesn't really make sense looking at the fibs. I think the most realistic expectation at a bare minimum would be 15.7 cents. But I personally believe that we'll see something at 26 to 32 cents. If not by the end of October, then by the end of this year. I don't have anything else that I want to say, so hit the like button, subscribe, take care of yourselves. Again, we didn't do the short-term stuff. We're doing some of the longer-term stuff because this is it's probably not going to move too much over the weekend. I'm not expecting too much. Let's look at the short-term stuff just real quick, though. I'm not really. Maybe we go down a little bit. Maybe not. I could see us moving up though. A lot of prods higher here, and we're not really rejecting down. These rejections are not rejecting. I don't know. 1 hour looks like it wants to come up. The 4 hour looks like it's in decent standings enough where we could bounce here. You've got enough signals on the RSI, the MACD, and the stochastics to move up from here. You just got to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if we moved up a little bit by the end of the day and going into tomorrow, but time will tell. A little bit is the key word. I doubt that we do anything significant. I hope that that by the end of the day we see this thing up like 30%. Wouldn't that be great? I'll make another video if we are, but if not, you guys just be patient. I'll make another one tomorrow. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Okay, take care of yourselves. Bye.